Frozen frog revival. They froze a frog solid, and it hopped back to life. In the 1980s, University of Alaska dunked with frogs in liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius. These amphibians, frozen like ice cubes, stopped breathing, hearts stilled, for weeks. Slowly thawed slowly, 70% revived, hopping as if nothing happened. Their blood's natural antifreeze glucose prevents cell damage. In 1987, tests showed frogs surviving 50 degrees Celsius for 60 days. Fun fact, would frogs freeze in the wild every winter, surviving in 30 degrees Celsius in Canada's tundra? Would you let scientists freeze to test your limits?
Shattered roses. A flower turned into glass then smashed to bits. Since the 1960s, labs have roses dipped in liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius to demo cryogenics. Petals harden, brittle as crystal, and a tap shatters them into glittering shards, showing cold's molecular chaos. Science fairs use this to stun kids, often pairing it with fog effects. Fun fact, liquid nitrogen boils at 195 degrees Celsius, creating instant spooky mist. Would you freeze a rose just to crush it for show?
Human corpses cryopreserved. Freezing the dead for a sci-fi future revival wild, right? Since 1967, cryonics firms like Alcor Froze have overfrozen 200 bodies at 196 degrees Celsius, hoping tech can revive them. Bodies are pumped with antifreeze post-death, stored in steel tanks. Cell cracking remains a hurdle, no revivals yet. Fun fact, Walt Disney's Frozen rumor is false, but Ted Williams' head is cryopreserved. Would you freeze your body for a shot at immortality?
Frozen bananas as hammers. A fruit-turned weapon, bananas driving nails. In the 1970s, labs froze bananas in liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius, hardening them like steel. Scientists hammered nails into wood with them, showing cold's material magic. The banana stays solid for minutes, then thaws to mush. Fun fact, Mythbusters nailed planks with frozen fruit in 2004. Would you swing a banana like Thor's hammer?
Mouse brains preserved. A brain frozen so perfectly it could hold memories. In 2015, the Brain Preservation Foundation froze a mouse brain at 135 degrees Celsius with aldehyde cryonics. Every synapse stayed intact, nanometer perfect, aiming to map thoughts or upload minds. Critics call it a dead snapshot, not life. Fun fact, the team won $26,000 for the method. Would you freeze your brain to live in a digital world?
Superconductors chilled. Metal floating like magic when frozen. In 1987, IBM cooled yttrium barium copper oxide to 183 degrees Celsius with liquid nitrogen. It became a superconductor, levitating magnets via the Meissner effect, sparking hover tech dreams. Cost keeps it lab-bound. Fun fact, superconductors lose all resistance at these temps, saving energy. Would you freeze metal to make it defy gravity?
Frozen sperm survival. Sperm ice for decades still making babies. Since the 1950s, fertility clinics have human frozen and animal sperm at 196 degrees Celsius. Bull semen, stored 50 years, birthed healthy calves. Human IVF banks rely on this, with sperm viable indefinitely if cold. Fun fact, a 2019 study revived 1968 sperm for a baby. Would you bank your DNA in a cryogenic vault?
Rubber balls shattered. A bouncy ball turned to dust in seconds. Since the 1940s, physics labs have rubber-dipped balls in liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius. Elasticity vanishes, and they shatter like glass when dropped, showing polymer failure in cold. NASA used this to test shuttle tires. Fun fact, a single drop can yield 1,000 shards. Would you freeze a toy to watch it explode?
Tardigrades in deep freeze. Water bears frozen 30 years still crawling. In 1983, Japanese scientists froze tardigrades at 20 degrees Celsius. Thawed in 2016, two revived, laying eggs in days. Their proteins shield cells from ice, hinting at space survival. Fun fact, tardigrades survived space's vacuum in 2007. Would you freeze a critter to test its superpowers?
Frozen fish comeback. Fish iced solid, then swimming again. In the 1990s, Japanese labs froze goldfish in liquid nitrogen for hours. Slow thawing revived 20%, thanks to antifreeze like blood sugars. Arctic cod do this naturally in icy seas. Fun fact, a 1995 test saw a fish swim after 12 hours frozen. Would you freeze a pet fish for science?
Liquid nitrogen skin tests. Freezing skin to kill cancer insane, right? Since the 1970s, dermatologists used liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius to zap lesions. It kills cancer cells or warts in seconds, sparing healthy tissue. Early overuse left scars, now refined. Fun fact, cryotherapy spas freeze you at 110 degrees Celsius for health. Would you ice your skin to fight disease?
Frozen embryos. Babies on ice, born years later. Since 1983, IVF clinics have embryos frozen at 196 degrees Celsius. Some, thawed after 27 years, became healthy kids, halting cell division perfectly. A 2020 record saw a baby from a 1992 embryo. Fun fact, over 1 million frozen embryos exist in the US alone. Would you freeze a future child for decades?
Ice cream, flash frozen. Dessert made in seconds with deadly cold. In the 1990s, chefs used liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius to freeze ice cream instantly. It yields silky texture, but spills burned skin or burst containers. A 2017 chef got frostbite from a leak. Fun fact, Dippin' Dots pioneered this in 1988. Would you whip up a treat with liquid that scars?
Frozen rat organs. Kidneys iced for transplants still working. In 2023, University of Minnesota froze rat kidneys at 150 degrees Celsius via vitrification. Thawed and transplanted, they worked for weeks, eyeing human organ shortages. Antifreeze mimicked fish blood. Fun fact, 17,000 Americans await kidneys yearly. Would you trust a frozen organ to save you?
Frozen bacteria revival. Germs frozen for millennia still infectious. In 2005, NASA thawed 32,000-year-old bacteria from Antarctic ice at 196 degrees Celsius. They grew in days, proving life's resilience. Some fear ancient pathogens could spark pandemics if ice melts. Fun fact, a 2017 Siberian anthrax outbreak came from thawed reindeer. Would you revive a germ older than civilization?
Frozen spider webs. Webs turned brittle for strength tests. In 1998, Oxford Labs froze spider silk in liquid nitrogen at 195 degrees Celsius. Normally stronger than steel, it snapped like twigs, revealing cold's impact on proteins. This guides biomaterial design for armor. Fun fact, spider silk's 5 times tougher than Kevlar. Would you freeze a web to crack its secrets?
Frozen blood cells. Blood iced for emergencies life-saving trick. Since the 1950s, labs froze red blood cells at 80 degrees Celsius with glycerol. Thawed, they transfuse perfectly, aiding war zones or rare types. A 2018 trial stored blood for 10 years. Fun fact, frozen blood saved soldiers in Vietnam. Would you rely on iced blood to survive?
Call to action. Frozen frogs, shattered webs, iced blood. These experiments are bonkers. Which one shocked you most? Drop a comment. Seen any wild freeze tests? Smash that subscribe button for more crazy science and share this with your friends to blow their minds. Let's keep chilling with the weirdest lab stunts.